Dante's Discussion.
Welcome back to another edition of Dante's Discussion Answers. Finally, I'm back here with the answers video. I got pretty sick for a while. I was doing tournaments. I hope you saw the last tournament that just happened. It was the Ultra tournament and it was ultra awesome, honestly. Check that out on twitch.tv/DanteWTFUN if you want to catch it. I do want to put it on YouTube, but we'll see how my schedule works out and if I can work it out with editing and stuff, because it was quite a long tournament. It was actually pretty quick considering it was 16-man double elimination, but it was still like 5 hours, so it's a lot of work. Either way, that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is the question at hand, the question I posted, I think 3 weeks ago. Again, I got sick and everything got messed up, blah, 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 whatever. Excuses, I'm lame, who knows, whatever. Either way, the question was, what should be banned in a tournament? And I mean like your normal tournament, not like a specialized tournament like my ultra great tournament where, you know, obviously it's an ultra tournament, so certain things are banned because it's specialized. But I mean like a true, you know, try hard tournament. What should be banned? Like what detracts from competition, if at all? I mean, should there be anything banned? And I sort of list things that are usually banned in most people who hold tournaments list. Karthus Blood Ring, any healing, Hornet Ring, that sort of varies. Other notable bans that I've seen before are Great Shields, any regeneration, Tears of Denial, and I'm probably missing some others, of course, but this was brought up because there was sort of a crazy surge in perseverance. In fact, to the point where if it almost seemed like if you didn't have perseverance, you were going to lose the match, because it meant they could close the gap taking very limited damage, and it almost, for good, competent players, to punish somebody with perseverance, essentially, you almost need perseverance yourself. Again, if you're facing a good player who understands how to use that to not get backstabbed and use it super close. So that was sort of why I added this question to the Dante's Discussion block here, and I wanted to see what your thoughts were, and I have some interesting answers here, so I'm pretty excited to get through them. Let's start it off. So you probably hear some sickness in my throat. I still can't really breathe. I have to be a damn mouth breather, son of a... Either way, let's go to YouTube. We have Kai231, a mage character in actually Dark Souls 3. Pretty much strictly mage, although he uses straight sword and whatever. Either way, he says just ban anything that is heavily used in the late rounds of most tournaments because it's probably overpowered. Perseverance, whatever curved swords weren't nerfed already and are still super fast, and shields. Again, this is something that they like there are problems, I feel, with what he said as far as the weapons and items that he said. Like, there are problems, but banning all of them, I don't know if that's the way around it, because you can get a good curved sword battle. I mean, a lot of them do get reduced to just running around who can do the better spacing with a running attack. It is corny. That's something I'd like to see, but I mean, at least there's some combat there. I do agree that curved swords are a little bit too fast. Perseverance was in that list. Shields are in that list. There are problems with these things, but are they the big problem? Is that the overall problem? I don't know. It's definitely interesting to see that. I don't know. I think there's bigger problems than maybe what he mentioned there. And with that, we have some replies from some people on the YouTube here. Foggle, my man Foggle, says, I think it depends on what kind of tournament you want. If you want the best of the best, you can't ban anything, but now we only see the same people with the same setup all the time, so it's starting to get boring for the whole Dark Souls 3 game scene. So yeah, banning top meta stuff might be a good pace of changes. Anyway, I think Dante is doing it right by creating specific tournament. It's refreshing. I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you. I try to do what I can to make it fun. Kai then replies, well, that's just it. You never get any semblance of the best as long as the few severely unbalanced weapons are in play. Get rid of them, and it becomes more a competition of skill and less of a best weapon competition. Then Oscar Walsh says, there's always a meta. If you ban shields, swords, and curved swords, it's probably the split leaf or a spear. Ban those, and it might be S-Dock or Axe plus Great Axe. You can keep going until you're left with the great bows, and then no one takes damage. There will always be a best weapon, but not by as large of a margin as there currently is. Outside of the super fast curve sword and board, nothing is terribly dominant. I gotta say, Oscar Walsh, he makes a really interesting point here, saying that there will always be a meta, and then Kai sort of says that, but not to as great of a margin. That's very interesting. Like, it's sort of each side of a coin there, and both arguments are actually quite valid, if I might say so myself. I mean, is there, like, curve swords and sword and board, I would say, are the best weapons. So, what beats them that's not them? And that's really just play. Now, here's the thing. I always say this. You can always lose once to something, right? Generally, you can always lose once to something. So, I could come in there and fight, one of the best players, and I can use something like the Demon's Great Hammer. Great Hammers are terrible. Some of the worst, if not the worst, weapon class in the game. Terribly slow. Don't really have the range. Sure, they have the hyper armor, but it's so slow you can get, like, hit twice, and then they can roll away. But I can win because no one's seen that weapon. I mean, you look at my showcase with that weapon, and I was beating, like, decent players with it. And because no one's ever sees that. Like, that weapon art's crazy. It has crazy hyper armor. So, in one match, I think almost anything is sort of viable. But in a best 2 out of 3 in a tournament format, it almost does seem like there are just better weapons than not. But I don't know if that realistically goes through the weapons more so than the playstyle. And that's the problem I'm having with this is when I see a tournament happen, I say there's different modes of playstyles. So there's tournament mode, and then there's, regular whatever Fight Club randomness mode. Now, there's some people who play tournament mode all the time because they want to win. That's how they play, which is fine. Then there's some people, they have the switch. They can switch it on and off. And I see it constantly when I make these tournaments where it's like someone doesn't want to lose, and you see it slow down to an absolute crawl. No one is aggressive. And if you play that way, super reserved, super counter player, is the sword and board and curve sword really much better than a lot of other weapons? Spears, axes? Is it if you play super reserved and counter? I don't know. That's something I can't say either way. Like, I really don't know. That's an extremely hard question to answer because I play aggressive. But I see people win playing super passive with, crossbows and S-Stock, or, I don't know, like crystal homing soul mass and like an axe or stuff like that, but they play super passive. So, is it more based on playstyle, or is the weapon so good? And part of me is leaning towards playstyle because the weapon is only usually as good as you can see it. Like, before a lot of the nerfs happen, you could sort of just R1 spam Karthus Curve Sword, before the bleed nerf, before that weapon got nerfed, and you could, like, beat anybody if you were just stupid. But after the nerf, a lot of things did change to get fixed ish. So is that the case? I don't know. That is the question for me in this particular instance. But it is very interesting thought process to think about that. It is very interesting to me. But maybe you can put it in the comments below. Tell me what you think about that one. I'm not gonna make that a discussion, but is it the playstyle or is it the weapon? Because I gotta say, I don't think the weapon itself can just make somebody win. Although I think the barrier to entry on curved swords and definitely straight swords is much less, like the learning curve. So, like I always say, I think that the aquamarine dagger and that scythes are actually vastly underutilized and underrated. It's just their learning curve is much higher than those other weapons. So those other weapons are easy. People hone the skills of the spacing of that weapon so they know it to a T. 99% of the time they're accurate, doing everything, roll punishing, doing everything they can to win. But does that mean they're better because they're easier? I don't know. Is that a place? I don't know. There's a lot of questions intertwined together, but very curious. Very curious. Next up, we have Anunnakis from Fextra Life says, Perseverance. What a mistake on Frum's part, in my opinion. It should have been merged together with Stomp as one single short-lived invulnerability flash move to poise through anything in a flash, but not linger for so long. Where it really becomes a problem is not especially with weapons, but rather with spells. Unfaltering Prayer makes playing Miracles so damn trivial. It simply killed the casting school for me. My personal nemesis is either quick step spamming or great shield turtling. The rest I can tolerate, including the Perseverance abuse. Actually, that is very interesting to me that Perseverance doesn't bother them. I really wonder in what capacity they have been playing, because in some of the tournaments it was running rampant and it got out of hand. To be honest, it was way too much. Quick step, I've never personally, I've rarely had a problem with quickstep personally. I understand the timings in between the frames. A lot of times you can just spam it down, or you can do off timing things. I've never had a problem with that. Great shield turtling, if you have a slow weapon and you're going against a great shield, and especially if you don't do chip damage, you will lose that match. That is one of the hardest matchups in the entire game. That might even beat going against some sort of ranged character with like a great hammer. Man, I'll tell you, great shields are, especially the Great Shield of Glory, that is a mistake in this game. One-handing with that stability and very little stat requirements. The Black Knight shield is crazy, no doubt about that. Great Shield of Glory, Jesus Christ. And Black Knight shield is broken. I don't care what anybody says. Oh no, it's easy to... No, it's broken. It is broken. There's no doubt about that. But again, any good shield user doesn't really use the shield to block anyway, so whatever. It doesn't really matter. Oscar Walsh from YouTube, who said something good before and now is kind of weird, says anything that can beat my Great Bow and Wooden Hammer dual wheel setup. Actually, GG, no re. Get him out of my face. Madhouse 007 says throwing weapons to end the match. You should finish with a weapon and not bail out. Knives, bombs are slow enough to be punished. Now, I think, I understand what he's talking about, or what they are talking about. I get it. Now, I've used knives to finish people off, but I think there's a skill to knives. Knives, you can just strafe and lose, or strafe and not hit somebody. Knives are pretty easy to get away from. Church shivs, however, are extremely difficult to get away from. Fire Surge, in that instance, should you ban Fire Surge too? Because Fire Surge is essentially the greatest finisher of anything in the game. That, if you're close, you're dead. You can't get away from it. So, at what point do you stop banning things that you can sort of get away from? I would understand this with meta weapons, sort of. You should be able to finish them off with the weapon. I get that. However, you got to understand there's great and ultra weapons out there which are extremely slow and extremely easy to dodge. That last hit, and especially out of Tears, F that. That's why I think knives are fine, because Tears of Denial is ridiculous. You can do a billion damage to somebody and not kill them. Having the knife there, the Thorns armor only does like 1. At least knives do enough, because regeneration's also a thing, and they can just run away and your weapon's too slow. That's why I think knives shouldn't be banned, but I understand why you should, or why you think it should be. So Extra Life's Ragnarok says, I'd be fine with the Hornet Ring if each match was a best of 3 and or a round robin style tournament. However, it's a single elims, then definitely no. It basically makes it so one mistake is game over and you're out of the tournament. It turns the match into a game of who messes up first rather than who is more skillful. I've never banned Hornet Ring because I didn't really understand this mentality. I actually do sort of understand what you're talking about as far as just the one match, one and done, because anybody can lose one match with one mistake. But he said, best 2 out of 3 is fine with it. But I never understood banning Hornet Ring. People say it's like, well, yeah, because you can get a parry and you can one-shot somebody if they make a mistake. Yeah, of course. they made the mistake. I mean, you're losing like, no one's ring swapping. Okay, I'm just telling you this right now. No one's ring swapping after a parry in this game. I personally haven't seen it. Maybe somebody can do it, but that's a freaking skill right there. That's really hard to do. So it's a ring slot, right? It's a ring slot. Don't get parried. Make sure you don't get backstabbed. No, I mean, no. Rarely in a real tournament is somebody using a ultra weapon. Like, don't be stupid. If you get caught with something dumb, 99% of the time it's your fault. It's not the net code. It's your fault. So they should be rewarded for it if they lose the ring slot and put Hornet Ring there. I mean, that was always my thought there. It's so weird to me that somebody would want to ban that. It's like, banning tiers to me makes sense because I could do 100 billion trillion damage to them and they survive. That's garbage. Like, tiers is broken as far as PvP is concerned. I mean, it's broken even in PvE, to be honest. I can't believe they actually brought that back from after Demon Souls had it or whatever. Like, that's so ridiculous. Like, it's such a broken thing. It's crazy overpowered. It actually should be, if they have to have tiers, something that lasts like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or something like that. Not infinite. Like, you can't even debuff it with a Hunter Charm or whatever. That's crazy. Like, that is crazy. It's broken to me. But we're talking about Hornet Ring. I think it should be allowed. I told you why. YouTube's Jinxed Swashbuckler says, I don't think anything beyond healing Estus should be banned because while I've lost just about every setup in existence, I never felt it was because the opponent's setup was OP or anything, especially considering From already nerfed projected heal almost to the ground. Could you specify the Perseverance and Dagger setup? That's what I said, I forgot what I said, but I said it, it's like a combo thing. But and then he says, oh yeah, overly passive play should be banned. Maybe at least if one guy just keeps running away and never initiating an attack. Yeah, running the clock can be boring and annoying. Now, I will go over this. I think somebody else might say it in this, but it's real. Like, I don't make the rule where passive play is banned, but I do state that it's severely frowned upon. Because you can't really ban somebody for their play style if that's what it is. So, because then it's pretty subjective, and if something is subjective, you run into real problems. And I did have an issue in one of my in my 2v2 tournament that somebody thought somebody was running the clock, and I didn't see it, but they saw it. So if something is subjective, that there's something that needs to be altered there. I mean, sometimes you think something's clear. I mean, no one's perfect. They think, oh, this is clear. Everybody's going to see it this way, but then somebody sees it differently, and it's like, oh, crap, that sucks. What the hell am I supposed to do? So, yeah, but initially you said nothing should be banned except for Estus. I mean, that's sort of how it was until they started seeing more and more things sort of ruining a lot of PvP matches. So essentially, oh, I'm losing a match. Boom, let me run away. Spam regeneration healing with the ring. If you keep tapping it, it's like whatever, 4 health every time you tap the thing. And it's extremely easy to evade in this game. So anybody who can't evade just about any weapon, like, you were gonna lose anyway. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, it gets a little bit wishy-washy there, but we're gonna get through that, I swear. A lot of people say a lot of things. Robert Haunting on YouTube, of course, a many-time champion here, probably 2v2s especially. If you want tournaments to not be reduced to who can tank better, either ban or set limits on Perseverance. Plain and simple. Running in people's faces with infinite poise, dagger, curved sword is simply unacceptable. Reduces fights to idiotic Perseverance spam. It was painfully obvious in the fights between me and B-dubs. It was honestly silly to watch, and when it comes down to it, puts whoever stacked more health and defense at the advantage. Shouldn't be a part of the scene that is supposed to be showing off skill and knowledge of builds and playstyles. Now, again, this is like the big issue lately. This is sort of like the hot topic, right? And what is interesting is no one saw it as a problem early on. When I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's an awesome tech choice. Like, that is awesome. Somebody bringing out Perseverance and switching it and to close the gap, because a lot of people play super passive, and that was sort of the way to get in, the way to get close to your opponent. And I was like, that's really cool. So you saw one person do it. Then you saw somebody trying to copy them. And you're like, oh, wow, they're trying it. They're just not as good. And you saw like 2 people copying it. And then those people started getting good with it. And then everybody was starting to do it. And it was like, who can do it better, or who can tank more, like he said. And there are some ways around it. But again, any good competent player who uses Perseverance understands the risks, which means they don't put themselves in harm's way. And there are certain ways around it, but you'd have to completely change probably your character to get around it. So for instance, Perseverance, I believe, is only physical reduced damage, like significant, whereas it isn't for elemental. So then what you could do is get a weapon that is strictly elemental and then do full damage. But then of course you have the problem of them having super hyper armor poise. Then what do you do there? And then it's like, oh crap, like, so where does it end? I don't know. That's why it was banned, because too many people were using it. It wasn't like a fringe case, use it once or twice in a match, come in. It started to be, I'm relying on this, and that's a problem to me. Just like running away and relying on regeneration, relying on tears, to me always seemed like a problem. I mean, there was cool ways I've seen people use tears, but most people don't use it that way. So I mean, again, this is just what I think, and this is what he thinks. Extra Life's Eldritch Imagination says, everything I'm not good at countering or don't enjoy playing against, everything I like and I am good at fighting against is totally fair though, and should be allowed. There, I just gave what every answer to this question will boil down to. Very interesting answer, actually. I do like this answer a lot, because it sort of says that what people don't like is what they want banned. And I will say, I definitely wanted Perseverance banned because it made me feel like I couldn't counter it. It made me feel like there was nothing out of it. Like, if you see somebody who's like looking to parry you or backstab fish you, you can play accordingly. If I see somebody with Perseverance, I have to run away. Like, I'm going to do less damage than them. They're going to get combos on me, stay close. Like, what am I supposed to do unless I have that again? And if you're in a smaller area, smaller arena, whatever, wherever you're fighting, that's like a real problem. That's hard to get away from. So, I mean, I definitely understand what he's saying. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, ban, meta stuff or curve swords. And they're like, well, I don't know, man. You're getting pretty ban heavy there. Like, when do you stop? So, is it really just people complaining about not wanting to fight what they don't like? I mean, I hate hyper armor. I seriously hate, like, I think it's one of the dumbest things they created because it makes people play passive. But I would never ban it. Like, that to me is crazy. I mean, you're banning half of the weapons and like a lot of weapons, like, so it's, I don't know. It is definitely interesting. I actually really like this answer a lot, because I feel like a lot of people, it might boil down to that, but not necessarily me, because I also like viewing fights, so maybe I have a different perspective, but who knows. JS Pumpkin King says, surprisingly very short but sweet here. I think nothing. You see, this game clearly shows that there's one weapon class that's better than the others, just like that. When you pick a weapon, you clearly know what's the basic pros and cons, therefore you know how to counter your weapon of choice, so you can just stick with your current build, or you can tweak your build so that you can have a backup weapon to counter your main weapon. Basic example is using an ultra while having a heavy Cestus Demon Fist offhand. I'm just gonna leave it here then. That is very interesting. I don't agree that nothing should be banned, but I understand what he's saying, that most things can be countered. So the Pontiff Knight Curved Sword, to me anyway, at least how I would play it, is countered by the Black Knight Shield. So it does no chip damage. Even if you have Night Slayer's Ring on, the damn thing has 69 stability. It has enough stability to take a few hits. And again, if you're a competent player with the Black Knight Shield, you don't use the shield to block. You use it as more of a safety net. So, oh, they did a running attack. I didn't think it was going to hit me. It did. Oh, I had the shield up. I'm fine. That's the way you lose it, or you use it. So I see that counter there. But then the counter to that was perseverance, so they can get closer and not be punished so badly. So it's like, yeah, I can see the counters happening, but then there is a point where something stops most other things. And that's interesting. But is it bannable? I don't know, man. It's really tough to decide that. Wolfenstein on Fextra Life says, 1. A big problem with Dark Souls 3 PvP is health regeneration. This being because it encourages reactive play in a system of mechanics where aggression is already considered the worst strategy one could employ. The addition of pocket regeneration with no need for stat investment worsens this problem a 1,000-fold. As anyone not carrying a pocket blessed Esses or utilizing Sun Princes, which after one hit everyone just trades their life ring +3 for an almost riskless swap, cheapening too many build making decisions to describe here, will be forced to be aggressive. Something which will surely result in their death. With the ease and efficiency of regen, Dark Souls 3 has become whiff punishing fest of riskless running R1 spam. Not the funnest thing. Eliminating one of the greatest assets of reactive play is the unwarranted ability to regenerate with no need to sacrifice anything is a step in the right direction for a funner experience. 2. Perseverance swapping. In and of itself, this could be tolerable as a concept, but the spamability of it is completely cheapens whatever strategic timing the mechanic first saw to value. Perseverance should probably only stick in so far as you keep two-handing the cesses, not as if it'll ever be fixed though. 3. Tears of Denial since so far I haven't seen it be fixed. To my knowledge, anyone can still do it with a couple of seconds of ring swapping, in which case if the player has enough dignity to refuse to do it, he's only handicapping himself out of laziness, boredom, or build actually I'm not fidelity, that's probably what it was, not From's brightest moment. Quick step spam and great shield turtling are certainly anti-fun tactics which contribute no display of beauty in one's fighting, yet I'm not sure I'd ban them. Wish reactive play could be banned, considering Dark Souls 3 PvP only works in so far as both combatants are willing to risk a loss in order to win, but that's pretty much impossible. This might be the best answer we have here. Very clear, very concise. I gotta hand it to you, Wolfenstein. I probably agree with every single thing you said here. Wow, I gotta say, this is like my thoughts typed. Seriously, I'm kudos to you, man. Health regeneration, like he says, ring swapping from life ring to then health regeneration is essentially null and void. So you get free life, and it almost makes me think that you shouldn't ban rings, but you should ban swapping. All right? I mean, maybe that's a thing, because even then, Tears of Denial, or I'm sorry, Red Tearstone, I always do that. Red Tearstone or Blue Tearstone. I don't know. Should that be banned? I mean, I wouldn't ban it. I do think ring swapping actually is a skill in itself, personally. I mean, it is fairly easy to do, especially if you only have a few rings in your inventory. If you have full inventory like me, it's a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, you see a lot of people do that. Ring swap, life ring +3. After, one hit, they back up 2 seconds because it's so damn easy to evade. They just switch to Sun Princess or whatever ring they want. Interesting. That's something you see in very high level play. It's something I've never done because I suck at ring swapping. Not really the thing I do, but yeah, it does turn into a whiff punish fest, which goes to your last point of wish you could ban reactive play. I'll tell you what, I wish I could. You can't do it. I mean, even I have to play a bit reactive against hyper armor weapons, and it sucks. That's why I don't like hyper armor weapons. It makes people play that way. I have to play that way against Leto's hammer. I have to. Otherwise, I will lose 100%. If I don't do that, hyper armor is just going to smash my skull in. And that sucks. Perseverance swapping. I mean, this was an idea that a lot of people have said that is fine. Is that perseverance is fine as long as you stick with that weapon. That's it. I mean, we thought that From Software should fix that, in that if you switch weapons while you use perseverance, you lose the buff. That's what we always thought, or that somebody came up with that, and I was like, that's the perfect solution. Then we won't have this problem. And Tears of Denial, again, it is not it's not. And he mentions really why it's a problem in a certain instance. My problem is that you can take 1 billion damage, it doesn't matter. His problem is that you can switch the priest ring, which gives you 5 levels. You can switch that and have enough to cast it, then you just ring swap again, and you're back to your normal build because it's ridiculous. It's overpowered, super easy to utilize, especially in usually most fight clubs and fights and whatever, you can usually buff. Rarely are buffs banned. Wow, I gotta say, I really love what he wrote. I think just about everything he said here is pretty clear, pretty concise, and pretty close to what I think. Wow. Final Soul on YouTube says, hey Dante, it's Aspect. I'm gonna give you my list. Aspect, also named Dante. Very strange, and he has terrible internet, and I hate fighting him. Any type of regen that means infusions, weapon arts, and automatic effects. Tears of Denial, any healing miracles or items. Perseverance is either banned or limited to 3 or 5 uses per match. See, that'd be hard to implement, I guess. Karthus Blood Ring, Hidden Blessings. That's about all I'd put on my ban list. Maybe Quickstep, but I haven't found a situation where Quickstep is game breaking yet so far. Now, that's my list. Now, I do find this interesting. Any type of regen that means infusions, weapon arts, and automatic effect. I actually don't agree with that. I think regens that are already on the weapon, so I think Sharpen on the Butcher's Knife and Great Machete, I believe. I think Great Machete gives you health. Surprisingly, Smo's Great Hammer has regeneration. Well, yeah, every hit is like 2 HP. I mean, it's negligible, but like I wouldn't ban the weapon for that. And there's probably a few others I can't remember right now, but I wouldn't ban those. But I would ban just about any other regeneration. Maybe with the exception of a pure faith build, meaning a faith build that has no weapons. But again, you know, it's like then you get in the really technical ban list that's weird. So a lot of times, to make it easier for the tournament combatants, you want to be pretty clear with your ban list. So if you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to ban all this, you might as well just ban all the miracles and just not deal with any of that type of regeneration, because again, it can get messy, and it's like, no, he did that, but that wasn't in the but yeah, I mean, your list is pretty close to what I would see, except for that strange weapon art thing, which is a little weird, but hey, to each their own. Extra Life's TSMP says there are 2 reasons people ask for bans. The first reason involves things that draw out the fight but don't necessarily help a player win beyond giving them more room for error. And the second reason is weapons or tactics that are either uncounterable or powerful enough to obviate a large majority of everything else. The second one tends to be very subjective and prone to arguments, but the first one is blatant enough to be generally accepted as default rules. Things like healing regen, Tears of Denial, or other death negation, roll spam, and so on. The kind of stuff where you win by not dying until your opponent loses via frustration. I can understand a Hornet Ring ban because lag tends to be hard enough to predict that a lucky parry isn't completely impossible, and being insta-gibbed off random chance is pretty lame. On the other hand, I do kind of miss dishing out 10k damage crits to bosses in Bloodborne. Now, again, in a best 2 out of 3, which I'm going to say most tournaments are. I have seen tournaments that are just one fight, which I personally don't like because I think anybody can lose one fight. It does up the stakes, which I also like, but I like seeing fights. Yeah. Either way, I want to be on Hornet Ring side, because even if let's say the first fight is lagging, you're like, oh crap, now I got to get used to this. Everybody's got to get used to lag sometimes. Generally, as a tournament creator, I try to not have bad internet people enter the tournament. I try to. Generally, most of the people have entered tournaments have at least good or better connections, or tolerable. Latency is a huge deal, and if you're a person who frames and skips around, like you just can't enter the tournament. Like, you're just out. Latency, severe latency, is really tough to get away from. Some latency most people have, so you should be able you should be used to some latency. So, I mean, you shouldn't have too many lag stabs or anything like that. And if you do, then you know, like, I really got to watch out for that. I got to be a little bit more careful in this situation, especially now that I see the damage they're doing with the Hornet Ring, assuming they have it on. Again, it's just like being a little bit more careful. Now, of course, I don't want that to be reactive, slow, corny, lame play, but I also want to see a good fight. I don't want people to be stupid, right? So it's a balance there. YouTube's Rakan Al-Ajmi says, regen builds, less weapons plus bountiful sunlight plus blessed cesses plus pray for favor, weapon or affiliate or time equals OP. Yeah, that's ridiculous. You know, what is that, like every 5 seconds it's like 100 health or something ridiculous? Like, now granted you have to put your stats in there, but with how a lot of rings are, it's actually not that bad. Not as many stats as you might think. Yeah, some of the rings, like Prisoner's Chain, I don't know, can just make you do that with very little problems. You can even actually set your vigor much lower because you're regenning anyway. So if you have that game plan, you can set your vigor to like 20. And even if every hit is like half your health, all you do is back up, play super slow, you know, throw out a lot of attacks, make sure they can't hit you, and you just regen crazy. That's why it's banned, because I do believe if there were certain players I know, if they went super faith, like heal build, it would be impossible to kill them. Straight up. Even if you were the best player in the world, and they were on a bad day, and they just lost an eyeball, and they had this, like, heal regen build, they would never win. Like, it can be so overpowered. It's something I see in my head, something that I've sort of wanted to troll people with for a while, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Just like with ganking, I can't bring myself to do it. YouTube's Office Dollar says, an ideal 1v1 style to see who is more consistently superior player, I'd say pairing and any other high luck variants. Now, I gotta say, Office Dollar, I love you. Been a big fan of this guy for a while. Don't agree with it at all. I actually think it's not luck. I actually think, well, I mean, it's only luck in the capacity of netcode, okay? But I do believe there is severe skill to parrying. And I also think that the risk versus reward is what makes it so spectacular. And I would really hate to see parrying get out of there. Now, there is one thing I don't like backstab fishers, because that's much easier to get, and a lot of that is, I've seen people who are really good at backstabbing. They like have ran through my body, backstab me after I've hit them because their backstab gets priority. That's nonsense. I wish I could somehow limit that, but again, that's like a netcode thing. That's not even like it there's part skill there and timing and understanding things, but man, that is just like, it seems so unfair, because if you're trying to fight and you're trying to be aggressive, you just get caught in that, and then the netcode just makes you look silly, and you're like, but I hit him, but I attacked and he still got the back. Like, what is that? Why was his faster than mine? It's like that. But I gotta say, I don't agree that anything like that should be banned. YouTube's Dracky V or 5 or whatever says, ban melee combat. Hilarious. Of course, if you don't know, that's dark matter from the 2v2 tournaments. One of the very few, with the exception of dagger, but I don't really count that because they don't use that for damage. One of the very few pure casters I've ever seen, and actually good. Actually, let me rephrase that. Great. Incredible. YouTube's The Great Azel says, I say ban as little as humanly possible, otherwise it'll just look like a spiteful blank. I don't want to ban things. I really don't want to ban things. I actually thought about the whole Tears of Denial versus regeneration thing, and in my head I was thinking, you don't ban both, you ban one or the other. That's what I was thinking in my head, and I was like, that seems fair. But then I was like, nah, you should just ban both, so people don't rely on it, and it's more of the gameplay rather than a crutch. Because I've seen people use these as crutches so badly, and it's depressing. And the problem is, like, you also see that with certain weapons. So curved sword running attack, you'll see people utilize that as a crutch. I mean, I've seen people do the figure eight forever, the running figure eight, and be like, oh, when are they going to attack? When are they going to attack? And every attack you do is slower. So, and what's unfortunate is with running attacks and trades and curved swords. So let's say a curved sword user is going against a curved sword user. That's a little bit different than a curved sword user going against a straight sword user. So now a straight sword user attacks a curved sword user who does a running attack. They both, collide with their attacks. It's a trade. The curved sword user then, because they're so much faster with their weapon, two-handing, is able to either trade or even hit the straight sword user first out of that initial trade. That's ridiculous. That the speed of the curved sword is ridiculous. Now, let's flip that. The straight sword does a running attack against the curved sword user. They both collide. It's a trade. The curved sword user then has priority and recovers first because their weapon's faster. And then they can smack up the straight sword user. This is most apparent with daggers. Daggers, if you do a running attack with a dagger, you're a fool because they just automatically recover. Like, it's just a joke. But we're not even talking about that. We're talking about not banning things. I mean, I've even seen matches with katanas where it's literally just running attacks because no one wants to stay close. People want to win. So do I ban running attacks? And then again, that goes to like passive play. So like, how far do you go? And that's really what I always think about is you don't want to ban too much, but at the same time, you do want to ban some things because it makes people rely on some things, and then it's going to be like only this is going to be in the tournament, and then it's boring, and then it's whatever. It doesn't seem as skillful. It's really tough, especially for a tournament organizer like myself. Chiku Blade says Perseverance switching. Again, we've talked about that ad nauseum, but yeah, it's something that I think probably for now on should be banned. Otherwise, it'd have this like weird specialized rules, like 5 times you can use it, which is tough. And I'll tell you why that's actually really difficult to ban it, like, or limit it to a certain amount, because then let's say somebody uses it 6 times. Are you like, do you really want to ban them? Let's say it's the finals and you're like, oh, DQ, and the finals ended in a DQ because they used it 6 times instead of 5. They're like, well, oh, I thought it was 5. You get what I'm saying? So it's tough. And again, when you want to hold a tournament, especially a tournament of a game that doesn't have a true, like, professional esports, whatever you want to call it, you have to sort of baby players, honestly. You have to baby players a little bit because you want players. You have much less players. I mean, this isn't Counter-Strike where players are everywhere, right? So you have to sort of crumble to the players, because if there's no players, there's no game, there's no tournament. The juice is here, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, on YouTube. He says, I have 2 different opinions here. One opinion is that you should ban whatever you don't want to watch in a tourney. If you're the host and you hate watching people spam overuse something, then ban it. I mean, it's your tourney, so you do what you want. If you aren't entertained or your audience isn't entertained, then what's the point? My other opinion is that you should ban anything that gives a significant advantage to one person. That person simply has to use that thing, item, etc., and they automatically have a big advantage. The only examples I can think of is definitely fits in this category is the Blood Ring and maybe Perseverance. The ring makes it so that you basically can't be caught by increasing your iframes. The only downside is that you lose some defensive absorption. Perseverance is very annoying. I think you do get an automatic advantage by using it, but I think there are times when you can punish its use. Again, I mean, I think you can punish Blood Ring. I've never had a true problem against Blood Ring, personally. True problem. I've had a problem with Blood Ring if I have a slow weapon. That's true. If I have a slow weapon, Blood Ring is... that's really annoying. But I've never had a problem with Blood Ring if I've had like a good weapon, straight sword, curved sword, something like that. Even like something like a spear, I've never had such an issue with it. So I ban it because it is annoying. It just makes matches go long with spammers and blah blah blah. Perseverance, man. Perseverance, again, we go back to that because that's the hot button topic here. Really tough to punish it against a good player. It really is, unless you use it itself. I mean, it just is. It just really is. It sucks. YouTube's Ludwig Lazo says Hornet Ring is too OP, especially if you pair it with the Chaos Infused Dagger. I agree Perseverance is exploitable and shouldn't be abused. Inherent Perseverance in weapons is fine in my opinion, but excessive switching is scummy. Magic Shield and Great Magic Shield cheesing also should be banned. Great Shields and Black Knight Shield are tough to beat, but not impossible. But when you slap that spell on them, it's really annoying. I do partially agree. I mean, again, a good shield user doesn't really use the shield to block. They use it as a safety net. But if they put that spell on there, damn thing does like nothing. Damn near no stamina damage to you. It is crazy. Shields are already good enough, and then they slap those or have those spells available. It blows my mind. Like, I didn't even know they were a thing, and then they were a thing, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this thing has freaking a Great Shield of Glory has what, 86 stability or something? Jesus Christ. I don't even know what the hell they were thinking with that. There should have been some sort of something where if an invader or something was in your world or whatever with the coding, that every time they hit you, it was different than PvE world. That's what they should have had. And 100% every kick should take away every shield. Maybe with the exception of some great shields, it might take 2 kicks, but 100% medium and small shields, every kick should allow you to get a riposte. It's so ridiculous. Moro Roccini on YouTube says, I'd say blessed weapon on the offhand, but some blessed weapons get more damage than lightning weapons on faith builds, and you can't nerf faith build more, right? That's why I think tiers shouldn't be banned. I'd easily ban Priestess Ring and Dark Moon Ring. What do you think about it? That's actually interesting, because that goes to the other guy who's talking about the ring swapping, is that it's all about someone easily being able to use Tears of Denial and sort of allowing them to get this sort of free 5 levels in the beginning of the match and ring swapping versus banning the Priestess Ring, which makes them have to lose 5 or however many levels depending on their character into Faith in order to use Tears, is interesting. That is definitely actually pretty interesting, I gotta say. Now, I've actually thought about this and proposed that someone who was able to use Tears of Denial had to have 40 faith or higher to use it, so that it's that's your build. That's like your strategy for playing is faith. That was something I thought, and that, I mean, the fact that Tears of Denial is not 40 faith or higher, or at least 30, and it's what, 15 or whatever the hell it is, ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me for how low it is? I mean, what are they doing? And I mean, how ridiculous, like, that's almost as ridiculous as them completely destroying Tree of the Giants or whatever, Seed of the Giants, because I just don't even understand what they were like. Did they not ever see anyone play the game or play? It's baffling. You can probably even see it in my face. It's just so baffling. Last but not least, we have again my man Foggle. He says, with the new trend, Perseverance should be banned, I think. And the Great Azel says, I mean, you can punish Perseverance with criticals or hitting them and rolling away. And then Oscar says, not if they're a competent player, being cautious. And really, that's what this whole topic was mostly about, to see what people should ban. But it came about because Perseverance has been so prevalent. And I think this sort of encompasses, these 3 here encompass why it should be banned. I mean, it should be banned because it's almost unpunishable, but they thought it was punishable, but a competent player almost makes it unpunishable. I mean, that's the thing. It's almost to the point of like where it's like a parry, right? So now parry is all about timing. It's not as much about spacing. It can be, but rarely. It's all about timing. So if you want to punish somebody with perseverance, you have to predict when they're going to use it, right? And you have to be close enough to punish them. But if they're a good player, they do it just outside of the range of being punished. So again, you know, where is that? Like, where's the skill there? Is there skill there? Because parrying you can see on rolling attacks maybe. But if you're just standing there and you have a curved sword or a straight sword, you can't parry on reaction. So maybe that's why it's banned, is because it isn't necessarily reaction based sort of counter. Like, there's no reaction based counter to it as far as I've seen. You might be able to get one quick hit in, maybe, but generally no, because they do it without being as close, and it definitely destroys spears or it doesn't destroy spears. Well, it definitely destroys our rapiers, that's for certain. They just bounce off like they're nothing. But yeah, I mean, I still think perseverance should be banned because it was just overused and people seem to use it as such a crutch, and it was pretty sad, pretty depressing. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe nothing should be banned, but maybe I should make a tournament where literally nothing is banned except Estus. That's it. Meaning you can heal, you can blood ring, you can do everything else you want except actual Estus, and even Ashen Estus is allowed. So that would be interesting. That's an interesting tournament, but probably an annoying tournament to watch. I always find it interesting to see what people can come up with, what strategies, and I don't know. Who knows? I just love making tournaments, making interesting rules, and maybe the most interesting rule is no rules. Who knows? Either way, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks everybody for their answers. Hopefully I can recover my voice, my freaking nasal cavity and everything, and my dying and you know. Either way, hope you enjoyed this one. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think, and I will be back.